This cybersecurity risk assessment presentation is brought to you by Bhuvaneswari Selvaduri, Jasmine Smith, Justin Swerkin, and Randall Ray as a part of UMGC graduate program Capstone in Cybersecurity project. In this presentation, we will be focusing on the recent New Zealand cyber intrusion and how a cybersecurity risk assessment was conducted considering the following factors: vulnerabilities and threats, current measures, and industry best practices. We will also discuss remediation. New Zealand's National Cybersecurity Centre, or NCSC, reported that 38% of the 339 incidents it responded to in the year since June 2018 were likely from state-sponsored hackers. NCSC confirmed the proportion of state-sponsored attacks detected in the 2018-2019 reporting period were about the same as the previous year. However, the current period's attacks had a greater impact because they were detected later or post-compromise. This allowed attackers to cause more damage than attacks detected prior to compromise or pre-compromise. Because of this cyber attack, New Zealand's economy was impacted, and therefore, the NCSC conducted a detailed cybersecurity risk assessment. What is a cybersecurity risk assessment? A cybersecurity risk assessment identifies the various information assets that could be affected by a cyber attack, such as hardware, customer data, and intellectual property, and then identifies the various risks that could affect those assets. A threat is what we're trying to protect the asset against. A vulnerability is a weakness or gap in our protection efforts. Risk is the intersection of assets, threats, and vulnerabilities. A risk estimation and evaluation is usually performed, followed by the selection of controls to treat the identified risks. It is important to continually monitor and review the risk environment to detect any changes in the context of the organization and to maintain an overview of the complete risk management process. Cybersecurity attacks associated with key threats impact system confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Based on past New Zealand cyber attacks, some threats to consider are cyber espionage and intellectual property theft for political, economic, and commercial advantage, cyber terrorism or state-sponsored offensive action, such as the disruption of services or damage to critical infrastructure systems, cybercrime, and cyber-enabled crime like scams involving online trading, dating sites, fake investments, or theft of personal information. Cyber vandalism or issue-motivated hacktivism, such as websites being defaced or other services interrupted for political purposes. The most common attacks identified from past incidents are social engineering, involving phishing emails, SQL injection attacks, cross-site scripting, man-in-the-middle attacks, malware attacks, denial of service attacks, and brute force or dictionary attacks. Attackers use continual and persistent combinations of usernames and passwords to compromise user accounts. They sent phishing emails targeting New Zealand government employees, installed unauthorized software which looked to be legitimate to the user but was in fact malicious, and pretended to be service providers or government agencies to further victimize New Zealand employees. The installed software gave attackers remote access to computers. Based on incident analysis, the geolocation of source IP addresses were identified using IP2Nation. The geolocation of the source IP addresses was identified as China, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Russia, the USA, and Venezuela. The traffic from these source IPs traced to irregular activities. 2 IP addresses were associated with one country in the IP2Nation database, USA and Saudi Arabia respectively, but associated with 2 different IP addresses in Alien Vault, Venezuela and Germany respectively. Considering the identified threat, attacks, and based on the vulnerability and attribution analysis, the findings were identified. The recommendations to remediate the identified findings will be discussed in the following slides. A secure SDLC process ensures that security assurance activities such as penetration testing, code review, and architecture analysis are an integral part of the development effort. The primary advantages of pursuing a secure SDLC approach are more secure software, as security is a continuous concern, awareness of security considerations by stakeholders, early detection of flaws in the system, cost reduction as a result of early detection and resolution of issues, and overall reduction of intrinsic business risk for the organization. Security engineering focuses on the security aspects in the design of systems that need to be able to deal robustly with possible sources of disruption, ranging from natural disasters to malicious acts. The security assessment and testing is a continuous process involving configuration vulnerability management and penetration testing. The configuration management involves manually assessing and configuring the systems to minimize vulnerabilities based on best practices. These include deployment of endpoint security software, network segmentation, change management, implementing the principle of least privilege, using an automated software update process for commercial software to fix discovered security flaws, and use of free configuration scanning tools. The vulnerability scan is used for scanning application servers, storage, workstations, and network devices to identify the presence of vulnerabilities, such as configuration settings that don't match intent, poor user account management, enabling easy access by unauthorized users, easily breakable authentication or encryption methods in use, and the presence of known exploitable software. More sophisticated systems can create a network map and find vulnerabilities not identified by analyzing any individual device. Provide security awareness training to employees frequently and conduct phishing campaigns on a regular basis. Security operations are those practices and teams that are devoted to preventing, detecting, assessing, and monitoring, and also responding to cybersecurity threats and incidents, which is detailed in the SOC slide. The NCSC must deploy advanced identity access management tools to securely control access to government resources. It will be a gatekeeper that will manage access controls and authentication for users, and the how as it manages authorization tools like key management, protocols, and schemas of permissions that manage access to resources and services. Delineating access and control across multiple accounts can be a good strategy to manage risk from a cyber resilience perspective. Configuration by account to control authorization to perform tasks only within the boundaries of the account where it has been configured. Delineating access and control across multiple accounts can be a good strategy to manage risk from a cyber resilience perspective. Establish federated access using SAML-based authentication, federation, plus single sign-on. Proactively enforce access and password policies. Limit the privileged access and monitor the access. Establish monitoring processes to manage user accounts and activities. Defend applications and data against unauthorized access through in-depth defense security solutions. New Zealand's National Cybersecurity Center must establish a Security Operations Center. A Security Operations Center is a team of expert individuals and the facility in which they dedicate themselves entirely to high-quality IT security operations. An SOC seeks to prevent cybersecurity threats and detects and responds to any incident on the computers, servers, and networks it oversees. What makes an SOC unique is the ability to monitor all systems on an ongoing basis, as employees work in shifts, rotating and logging activity around the clock. Ability to control all systems and reduce the potential for losses of data, contributing to higher returns on investment to prevent breaches. Strict measures to prevent data loss is one of the best ways to improve and maintain brand integrity in the long run, thereby solidifying client and employee trust. New Zealand will be secured enough by implementing the discussed remediation. The transboundary nature of cyberspace means New Zealand must engage internationally in cybersecurity welfare. Because cybersecurity and internet governance are relatively new issues, our discussions focus on detecting problems, building understanding and awareness, developing norms and rules of the road, and identifying cooperative measures. New Zealand must participate in discussions on cybersecurity with other countries. At the United Nations, in regional forums, and at multi-stakeholder forums like the Internet Governance Forum. Sharing threat information and best practices with international partners helps New Zealand assess cyber threats and put in place systems to address them. New Zealand must contribute to building international cybersecurity capability, especially in the Pacific.